Well, I'd say the next thing on our agenda has got to be Lavender Town's main attraction. Also seems that the list here assumes our next badge will be Koga's, even though technically speaking we could go to either Fuchsia or Saffron City just as easily at this point. Well, I had bought 4 bottles so each of the guards could have their own, but if you want to open the way after just one of them, then who am I to complain? It's my fault for thinking the game would want us to open up all 4 arbitrarily locked paths anyway. Hell, it's just as likely I misremembered how many roads there are into the town, and there's actually only 3 and not 4. Probably should have just sold that water to get it off my hands permanently, but it's not that big of a deal at the moment. Anyway, time to start properly climbing the Tower of the Dead. Well, we've got a scope, so we shouldn't have any trouble on that front anymore. Hey, just because I call myself the Blue Demon of Fire and I'm playing the red version of the first generation doesn't mean I'm an evil spirit here. I know, it's just another throwaway bit of dialogue before a fight, and considering how little justification we had for earlier fights in the game, I don't think they needed phantoms possessing people in this tower. Still, I suppose this is one of only 2 Rocket issues where it feels reasonably justified that our hero might want to get involved. Back at Mount Moon and Cerulean, we clashed with them simply because they got in our way and we were traveling from point A to point B. We hit the rocket base because it was an obstacle to the player's progress, not because there was anything especially bad going on out there at the time, or that the player character should really give a damn. But we're going into Lavender Tower partly because Mr. Fuji is being held at the top by Team Rocket. So we're gonna save the random old man in trouble, since nobody else seems available for the rescue. And there's the added issue that the ghost of the murdered Marowak is causing chaos with a bunch of other unnamed ghosts. I can't help feeling the game should have done more to show that this is a decent amount more serious than anything else that has happened so far in the game. As is, the player has no reason to feel in any way emotionally invested in clearing the tower or rescuing the old man at the top. But the player character probably would be feeling something different about this situation compared to every other march through an area with plenty of wild Pokemon and various trainers in his path. I'm not even sure what you would even call that kind of narrative issue. Is there an official term for something where the character in the story should be treating something more seriously, but the audience isn't given a reason to care about it any more than anything else that has happened so far? Well, this Ghastly has certainly proven to be more of a pain in the ass than the others we've seen so far in this tower. Speaking of pain, it's hard not to notice that there's painfully few ghost types in this game. There's literally just Ghastly and its 2 evolutions. Hell, the next generation is only going to introduce 1 ghost type. mischievous. And that Pokemon shows up so damn late in the game that it's downright absurd to try to capture one. Though not quite as absurd as the fact that, due to a coding error, Ghost type is not the anti-psychic beast that it should have been on paper. Seriously, the secondary type of Poison just screws Ghastly and its older forms over. Not to mention how weak most of the Ghost moves are in this game. It definitely says something that Neo is our best answer for these ethereal annoyances. And that's a damn shame, because Ghastly and its line are definitely Pokemon I like, both visually and personality-wise in all the various incarnations. I swear, when we finally get around to doing the second generation, I'm definitely gonna have a Ghastly on the team. Didn't get the sense that we were saving you, mostly because there's no apparent difference between a battle against these, channelers who got possessed and battling any regular trainers. They send out a Pokeball that has a ghost in it, and we knock the ghost out like any other Pokemon. As a side note, considering how Pokemon, especially back in the 90s, tried to remove some cultural things, it's amazing they did so little to hide that the channelers are Mikos, or Shinto priestesses. Seriously, the whole white robes and wooden wands couldn't be confused for anything else. And this is the time period when they would remove rice balls and replace them with pizza for some reason. Casper may not be the most creative of ghost names, but to be fair, this one is gonna stay in the box anyway. Wonder why I'm not as annoyed by the ghosts constantly showing up in this tower, or at least not as annoyed by the sheer number of encounters we get, compared to what we saw in the various caves. It's not like the ghosts here have been doing anything to make this especially creepy to add to the atmosphere the tower is going for. Not that there really is all that much the game could manage to do to make the tower seem especially creepy compared to all the other locations we've wandered through outside of maybe having some, something a bit more than just the tombstones lying around. Which reminds me, who decided to make a graveyard into a tower with multiple floors? When I checked online if that was ever a burial ritual in any part of the world, the closest I could manage to find was Dakmas, which I'm probably mispronouncing. That's a Zoroastrian word that essentially means Tower of Silence. However, since the bodies do not seem to have been left in ways for various vultures and crows to eat the flesh off so they can later send the bones into a pit, I don't believe they were going for that bit of inspiration. It's almost like the game designers didn't make the place a gravesite of some kind until after they'd already worked on the bare-bone basics of the terrain. Then they threw in the gravestones as walls once they decided what this tower would be, and figured nobody would really think about it. And of course, that meant that they didn't put all that much thought into it, that when they had to make it a returning location in the second generation, they kind of panicked and came up with a weird change for it. But we'll get to that change when we finally get to the second generation. And there's still plenty of footage for us to go through in the first generation. Right. Of course it was another ghost. It's not like there's been anything else from these channelers. And the other kind of wild Pokemon around here are the very rare Cubones. Sorry, Phyllis, I thought you'd be able to take that one down as well. Guess we're heading back to the Pokemon Center once we're done here. Apparently in the first game, we're essentially treating Gastlies as a more annoying form of Zubat for the most part. At least a Zubat can be hit with any offensive move, but Ghosts can't be hurt by normal type moves at all. And that means a good amount of our offense is completely useless. It doesn't make up for the fact that Ghosts in this game are weak to Psychic, when the in-game text in a few points mentions a few different times that Ghosts should be able to take Psychics down. Still, considering how many fights we get into in this tower, it's hard not to wish for a bit more variety in the things we fight against in here. Though again, I find it odd that I am not as annoyed with all these Gastlies as I was with the various Geodudes and Zubats in the caves. You know, as absolutely annoying as the tower can be, it's still one of the few things in the game that gives a town some actual personality behind it. Sure, Celadon has the marketplace, gambling hall, and rocket base, so it has more personality than the other towns that came before it, but still, the things we had to do in Cerulean and Vermilion, and what we'll have to do in Cinnabar feel more like busy work to slow us down rather than something meant to build the world or develop any of the characters. Hell, there is literally no character development at all, which is kind of annoying when this is a pretty long journey. Despite this being a coming-of-age story, the player character for this first generation doesn't actually grow as a person. You just accomplish some things and remain a blank slate from beginning to end. Now, I'm not saying that a blank slate character is automatically bad or something like that. Games like Metroid and Legend of Zelda can have blank slate characters for the most part, since the gameplay and lore of those worlds are rather engrossing. Games like Dragon Age Origins and Persona can pull off blank slate main characters because of the rest of the cast really helps drive things along, makes you want to interact with them and the world around them. Games like Dark Souls or God Eater or anything like that can pull off blank slate characters rather well, since there's quite a bit of customization you can do for said character. Again, I know this game is pretty old and was made for a rather limited handheld system. It's downright amazing what they managed to pull off at the time with what they had. Still doesn't change the fact that the in-game world building is rather iffy. There is no real supporting cast to speak of. The overall plot is as basic as it comes, and the only thing we can do to define our character is decide what team of Pokemon he brings with him in this generation. Right, that certainly was a bit rougher than I was hoping for Takanabori there. This tower is just not kind to him at all. Guess we're falling back to the Pokemon Center again. And I'm kinda tempted to give myself a break once we get to the center. Mostly because the tower is proving to be a good deal more grindy than I remembered. I'd probably have less of an issue with it if it wasn't for the fact that we keep going up against Gastlies within a 5-level range of one another. Ugh. Then you've got the fact that our move pools at the moment, even for a heavy hitter like Takanabori, are not doing so well here, though I'm pretty sure he'd be tearing through this tower if this was the remake Fire Red or Leaf Green, since Bite was changed from a normal to a dark move. Sure, part of me wants to say that something as basic as biting shouldn't have some absurd elemental property to it, but considering how things are going for us right here and now, I'd appreciate that bit of bullshit to make things a little easier on us here.